Hi, thanks for listening. This is Dr. Scott McQuate, and I am creating this audio for people who have an interest in Planet X, or what is often called Planet Niburu, or Planet Nibiru. And the reason I'm sharing this information with you is because I know that there is a lot of junk on the internet, and has been for years, and I really have a soft spot for people who are earnest truth seekers and want to find out what's really going on with this and related topics, because I know you've got to trudge through a lot of junk to get answers to this and other issues. So what I'm going to share with you tonight, I've never shared publicly before, and it has only been shared with students of mine at innercircle.us at my learning network, my private learning network, and I want to make you a promise. I want to promise you this. Although some of the things that you'll hear me talk about tonight, you will already have heard, some of the basics surrounding this planet, but my promise to you is that much of what you will learn from this presentation you will have never heard anywhere else, and that's a fact. I've spent a lot of time doing what's called exegesis. It really means uncovering the language. It means interpreting the language, but I don't like to use that word because the truth is not interpreted. There is a truth. There is a uniqueness to truth, and it doesn't have anything to do with one's interpretation. And I spent a lot of time doing exegesis, and have over the years, and this information that you're going to hear tonight is a result of some very in-depth, hardcore exegesis that I've done for more than a decade. So without further ado, let me start reading from my paper that I've written for my students entitled The Red Dragon and the Sheep, The Return of Nibiru. To begin solving the mystery of the planet known as Nibiru, Niburu, or Planet X, here is an excerpt about this specific topic from Chapter 14 of my first book, Blueprint for Bondage, found at blueprintforbondage.com. A story has been passed down from an ancient people known as the Sumerians, who lived in an area known as Mesopotamia, meaning the land between two rivers. These two rivers are the Tigris and Euphrates, and this geographical area, also known as the cradle of civilization, is now occupied by Iraq, eastern Syria, and southern Turkey. The story tells of a planet that has appeared periodically throughout history, about every 3,600 years, and that was knocked out of its orbit during Satan's rebellion. Throughout their writings, the Sumerians speak of the appearance of this planet, which they refer to as Nibiru or Niburu, and describe it as an anticipated, observable, and predictable event that would bring rains, much flooding, upheavals, and great earth events, as its strong gravitational and electrical effects had been known to do in the past. Just like the Sumerians, the Hebrew or Israelite prophets spoke of a planet's approach to Earth and its becoming visible to man, and considered it a time of ushering in a new era. Pardon me. If the ancient Hebrew prophets are referring to planet Nibiru, or Planet X, as it is commonly called today, just as the Sumerians were, then the words of Isaiah chapter 13, verses 5 through 11, 13, 17, and 19 make perfect sense. Isaiah tells us in that passage, "They come from a far country, from the end of heaven, even the Lord and the weapons of his wrath, to destroy the whole land." And the word country here is Eretz, E-R-E-T-S, in the original Hebrew, and literally means earth. The phrase end of heaven is Katzeh Shamayim, which means, in the Hebrew, outskirts or extremity of the visible universe. So what we have here is literally something coming from a distant earth, from the extremities of the visible universe, with its weapons of destruction. The passage continues, "Howl ye, for the day of the Lord is at hand. It shall come as a destruction from the Almighty. Therefore shall all hands be faint, and every man's heart shall melt, and they shall be afraid. Pains and sorrows shall take hold of them. They shall be in pain as a woman that travails." And this is a reference to a woman travailing in Revelation chapter 12 that I will speak about shortly, and the word travail is yalad, Y-A-L-A-D, and means to bear a child. They shall be amazed at one another. Their faces shall be as flames. Behold, the day of the Lord comes, cruel both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy. Well, the Hebrew word for destroy is shamad, which means literally to exterminate. He shall destroy the sinners out of it. Again, we see an extermination taking place just as in Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. As I explain in detail in my paper entitled Cinderella and Other Tales of the Fairies, P-H-A-R-I-E-S, at my learning network, innercircle.us. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof will not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. And I will punish the world for their evil, and the wicked for their iniquity. And I will cause the arrogance of the proud to cease, and I will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. Therefore I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall move out of her place in the wrath of the Lord of hosts, and in the day of his fierce anger. Behold, I shall stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver. And as for gold, they shall not delight in it. Their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, shall be as when the figure known by the letters YHWH shall be as when Yahweh overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. And this is not saying that this is brought on by the figure known by the Tetragrammaton, YHWH, but it is comparing it to the destruction brought on Sodom and Gomorrah by that figure. So please bear that in mind. To add support to this idea of the planet Nibiru returning and causing great chaos, Immanuel Velikovsky demonstrated rather convincingly in his book Worlds in Collision that there was massive evidence of both a literary and scientific nature that great catastrophic earth changes had occurred during the second millennium BC due to cometary showers and the close passage of Venus. He settled on a date of 1450 BC. However, more recent scientific evidence points to the date actually being closer to 1628 BC. There's also evidence for a disruption around 5200 BC, 8800 BC, 12,400 BC, 16,000 BC, 19,600 BC, and by logical extension every 3,600 years previously for an indefinite and unknown period of time. What is more, if the last return was in 1628 BC, we are not just due, we are overdue for the next one, for the next return of Nibiru. Considering the scientific evidence for the catastrophic earth changes that occurred around 1628 BC, we must ask ourselves if there is any biblical evidence that suggests that something significant occurred during that time, that same time frame. And the answer is absolutely yes. In the beginning of the Bible, there is a description of an event that took place during this time, around 3,600 years ago. The occurrences that surrounded this event seem to perfectly fit the description of the effects that Planet X, or Nibiru, has on the Earth, based on what we find in ancient manuscripts. What's even more interesting is that the occurrences that surrounded this event 3,600 years ago are very similar to those described in the book of Revelation, which outlines what will happen in the end of the world, or age. Other ancient manuscripts describe these same events and confirm that this planet does indeed come into sight and does indeed cause great cataclysmic events to occur on the Earth. Two of these other corroborating texts are the Mayan prophecies and the Colburn Bible. First, the Colburn Bible describes in detail a massive celestial body known as the Destroyer. The description of this destroyer correlates to the quote-unquote far Earth in the Isaiah passage just noted, possibly to the destructive celestial body known as Wormwood in the book of Revelation, as well as the warning of the red comet to arrive in 2012, or, as some would say, December 24th, 2011, according to the Mayan calendar, which is the other ancient source of note. The Colburn Bible is a substantial biblical-era wisdom text of immense value. The earliest books of this ancient manuscript were written following the Hebrew exodus from Egypt. Free of religious divides, the Colburn Bible offers a non-judgmental view of ancient times that bridges secular and non-secular thought. It also projects dire and urgent warnings from across the millennia to those of us living today. The message of the Colburn Bible is clear. We will soon face natural disasters that will visit death and havoc upon us on an unimaginable scale. It also provides unique insights into the current perturbations or the unexplained vibrations or movements happening throughout our solar system and the ever-quickening pace of natural disasters and plagues that now beset us. Now, some of what I'm reading to you comes from my book, Blueprint for Bondage, and these are quotes. If you'd like to see the bibliography, I'd be happy to send it to you, or you can go to blueprintforbondage.com. To be aware of this planet and its soon return is very important, but just how important? Important enough for the United States government to sit up and take notice. America has spent huge sums to deploy what they call the South Pole Telescope in Antarctica. The final installation will be a size of a mini-mall and will require a massive C-130 airlift effort to transport pre-assembled modules and a large staff to the most desolate, inhospitable, and inaccessible region of the world. Why? Because Planet X, or Nibiru, was first sighted by NASA in 1983. And even reported in 5 major American newspapers before it was squashed the very next day. This discovery spurred the USA to build the SPT, or the South Pole Telescope, humanity's new Planet X tracker. And that, since the writing of my book, that is now in place. That's been put into place in Antarctica, as you may know. The ancient peoples who speak of this planet also speak of the inhabitants of this planet and call them gods and even give them a name, the Anunnaki. The word Anunnaki means, literally, those who from heaven to earth came. They were said to fly in spacecraft and were attributed with great knowledge that they passed on to the inhabitants of the earth. This incoming planet has been the subject of many books over the last decade. Those who govern us absolutely know it is coming, as we've seen in the text from my book above, but they refuse to acknowledge its existence. Another primary example of this is what has been done to its coordinates on Google Sky. You can view the area of the constellation of Orion, from which Nibiru is said to be coming, by going to google.com/sky or Wikisky, W-I-H. What you will learn from this presentation you will have never heard anywhere else, and that's a fact. I spend a lot of time doing what's called exegesis. It really means uncovering the language. It means interpreting the language, but I don't like to use that word because the truth is not interpreted. There is a truth. There is a uniqueness to truth, and it doesn't have anything to do with one's interpretation. And I spent a lot of time. Hi, thanks for listening. This is Dr. Scott McQuate, and I am creating this audio. So what I'm going to share with you tonight, I've never shared publicly before, and it has only been shared with students of mine at innercircle.us at my learning network, my private learning network, and I want to make you a promise. I want to promise you this. Although some of the things that you'll hear me talk about tonight, you will already have heard, some of the basics surrounding this planet. But my promise to you is that much I'm doing exegesis and have over the years. And this information that you're going to hear tonight is a result of some very in-depth, hardcore exegesis that I've done for more than a decade. So without further ado, let me start reading from my paper that I've written for my students entitled The Red Dragon and the Sheep, The Return of Nibiru. To begin solving the mystery of the planet for people who have an interest in Planet X, or what is often called Planet Niburu or Planet Nibiru, And the reason I'm sharing this information with you is because I know that there is a lot of junk on the internet and has been for years, and I really have a soft spot for people who are earnest truth seekers and want to find out what's really going on with this and related topics, because I know you've got to trudge through a lot of junk to get answers to this and other issues.